On Business Incorporated today. South Africa announces hike in fuel prices for July. Ethiopia plans to restructure an additional $1 billion debt. Seychelles gets approval for $107 million plan from IMF. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Ini John McCall. Let's get the program started with the markets. All markets we track were trading in the negative territory at intraday on the African continent. GSA index in South Africa was the highest decliner, losing almost 2% at intraday. EGX 30 of Egypt came far behind, shedding 0.25%, and NGX of Nigeria was down 0.08%. Kenya closed Wednesday's session in the positive, though, 0.50%. In the Middle East, all the markets were negative also. The Tadawal of Saudi Arabia lost almost 1%, while Qatari index shed 0.21%. In the UAE, Abu Dhabi market was down 0.09%, while the Dubai financial market followed closely, down 0.08%. Elsewhere in the Qatar, the market was also lower. We move over now to Europe. Stocks were lower this morning amid a more cautious turn in global sentiment. Stock 600 fell 0.9% in early trade, with basic resources dropping 1.9% to lead losses, as almost all sectors and major bourses slid into negative territory. Conrad has more to tell us. He joins us from Frankfurt. Hello, Conrad. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Lagos. Hello from Frankfurt. Great to be back on Channels TV.
Great to have you. BMW and Volkswagen must pay €807 fine for breaking antitrust rules. European Commission said the car makers breached EU antitrust rules by restricting competition in emission cleaning for new passenger diesel cars. Daimler was not fined because it revealed the existence of the cartel. What's the market's reaction to this story?
Well, there's been a very strong negative reaction in terms of the share prices. Even Daimler, the company that does not have to pay a fine because it acted here as a principal witness, even its shares are plunging quite significantly this Thursday. Obviously, investors were quite surprised that this antitrust decision would make it into the light of the day. You know, the European Union's antitrust people are entering new territory here. These behaviors that were investigated here were not typical antitrust behaviors. They were not price rigging or illegal market demarcation agreements, but the car makers agreed on the size of certain tanks that they implemented in their cars. And the car antitrust people are now considering this as also potentially creating an illegal cartel. Some of the car makers are not convinced that this is true. Volkswagen, namely, is considering to challenge this decision by the EU antitrust people. It says that a certain amount of cooperation is important for car makers, that the car makers must cooperate in order to have a fruitful and productive car industry in Germany. So this is a fundamental question that is likely going to preoccupy everyone on the markets for quite a while.
Quite a while. Well, the European Central Bank has come out with an update on its strategy. What do we know about this, and how important are these strategic changes?
They don't look big, but they are important because Christine Lagarde wants to make sure that everyone knows that she's in charge and that she is acting proactively in terms of the strategy of the monetary policy maker, the European Central Bank. The price target of consumer price inflation in the Eurozone is in the future not going to continue to be below but close to 2%, but it is going to be 2% exactly. The old wording had made for some confusion sometimes among traders and also experts for the currency markets. They were concerned that the ECB might be worried more above the 2% target than below the 2% target. Now, this concern has been addressed. The ECB also wants to adapt more green standards to its monetary policy. It's going to tell us later what it means exactly by that. And the inflation methodology is going to be adapted. Also, owner-occupied housing costs are going to be included in the description of inflation. That is likely going to take a while because it has an effect on the data collection of the different countries of the Eurozone. They all have to adapt their methodology and their systems.
And we've talked a lot about mergers, acquisitions. Lately, this time, a majority takeover is called of who are the companies involved, what's really going on?
Yes, we are talking about two German medium-sized companies, but very outstanding in their markets, Knorr-Bremse, and which is a brakes maker for the auto industry, and also Hella, the lightning maker for the automotive industry. Knorr announced that they have always considered for value-enhancing transaction with leading international companies, which is why they looked at Hella, but they didn't see necessary synergies in the potential transfer of competencies, particularly in the commercial vehicle sector. That's why Knorr-Bremse says it's calling off the interest in Hella. What also is quite likely is that Knorr-Bremse didn't want to get involved into a bidding war. Last week we got reports that from France, Plastic Omnium and also Forcia, two suppliers for the car sector, were considering making a bid for Hella. And, you know, something like that can be expensive. Knorr-Bremse, on the other hand, has a reputation of being very conservative financially and not going for mergers and acquisitions at any price.
Well, thank you so much, Conrad, for a lot of updates coming from Frankfurt there, and enjoy the rest of your day. So we move over now to London, where Juliana is standing by. Hello, Juliana. Welcome to the show today. Well, UK oil firm now has the right to seize Indian state assets in France worth more than £17 million. What's the backstory of this?
Between Cairn Energy, which is a Scottish oil firm, and the Indian government under the leadership of Narendra Modi. There was a new law that was passed in India in 2012 to do with backdating tax, and that's what they did. They did that for a subsidiary of the oil firm that had listed on the stock exchange in India. And what they did after that is they sold 10% of the subsidiary's stake to a third party. Ever since then, Cairn Energy have been fighting back, and an international dispute did find that the government of India were at fault and had to repay over £1.75 billion. Now, Cairn Energy have a market capitalization of just over £100 million. So this is way above how much that company is worth. But they have been trying to talk to the Indian government. They've been going back and forth for years. It was made a little bit more tense when the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson and Liz Truss, the Trade Secretary, was so keen to get this post-Brexit trade deal across the line with India, which they managed to do, but they kind of shifted this Cairn Energy dispute to the side. Well, it's not the case anymore. According to the Financial Times, a French tribunal court has allowed Cairn Energy to seize Indian properties in Paris. I believe there are two properties, and I think they're valued at about 20 million euros. Cairn had the authority now to sell on this property, and it continues. This is a massive spat, and it doesn't just involve Cairn Energy. There are so many other firms that are having this dispute with the Indian government now. We haven't yet had a reaction from the Indian government, but I'm sure that's soon to come.
We'll certainly wait for that. And Chancellor Rishi Sunak has been saying a whole lot. He's been talking about pension and the end of £20 universal credit. What brings this conversation to the fore at this time?
Well, yeah, this is a big dispute about the triple lock state pension. Every year, the pensions, state pension, so this is the pension that's given out to those who have retired by the British government. It's supposed to rise following three measures. One is the level of inflation, one is the level of the average wage, so basically the cost of living, or by 2.5% each year. Now, the Bank of England, because of the pandemic and all of the upheaval in the labour market, they've predicted that by next year, the cost of wages will rise by 8%. It's the highest figure, and that's the figure the government stuck to when it comes to offering state pension rises. Now, this has caused a huge storm. However, there are obviously people that are on the side of the elderly and think they deserve this. But given that the NHS pay rise of just 1%, well below inflation, has caused so much controversy, given how many NHS workers have died and how under pressure they've been during the pandemic, they think it's completely unfair. This has been a bit muted, but today Chancellor Rishi Sunak reacted to some of the outcry about this potential raise, and he said that the concerns are legitimate, and a lot of economists and observers in this country think that that's his first hint that this 8% potential rise in state pensions will not go ahead. It's a big talking point here. Why it's pegged to the cap of universal credit is because there are so many families, very many families here in the UK that are living in pretty dire situations. Many of them have suffered through the pandemic. They got this £20 per week rise in universal credit. That is going to be scrapped. And again, there are lots of questions at why, on one hand, the government will be scrapping an extra payment just to give people dignity of £20 a week. But on the other hand, giving those who are retired, some of whom are very well off, this 8% rise. So it's an ongoing debate, but I'm sure it will all come out in the wash later this year.
And as at 11 a.m., the FTSE was down 130 points. Deliveroo has raised sales forecast after strong growth in 2021. What's going on in the markets, Juliana?
Well, the markets are pretty much very much in the red, deep in the red. Red is the colour of the square mile in London today. We're seeing triple-digit losses. It appears as if some of the sentiment has shifted away from investors thinking, yes, you know, there is going to be a swift global recovery, to now concerns about the trending variant at the moment, which is the Delta variant. Earlier today, the Japanese government declared a state of emergency in Tokyo ahead of the Olympic Games. Even though we have a successful vaccine rollout here in the UK, numbers are still rising, and it is starting to creep into markets. The FTSE All-Share is down 1.84% at intraday. The FTSE 100 is down by 1.90%, and the FTSE 250 is down by 1.53%. In the currencies market, the British pound is down on the US dollar by 0.25%, down on the euro by 0.62%, and down on the Japanese yen by 1.04%. That's big down there for the British pound. You're talking about Deliveroo. Yes, Deliveroo, the ride-hailing app, they have just released their quarter results for the month to June, showing that they are having bumper sales. Their transactions online have increased by 80%. That's certainly been helped by the Euro 2020. I thought it was only right that I get that in, Innie. They are actually sponsoring the England team in the run-up to the final on Sunday, so they're expecting their sales to be even bigger than that, because a lot of people who aren't lucky enough to be at Wembley will be ordering at home, and they're hoping it's going to be them. And bosses have also lifted their sales forecast this year. They expect to be making money of up to £6.5 billion in 2021.
I knew you would find a way to bring that in, Juliana. Anyway, enjoy the rest.
For the football lovers.
For the football lovers. Enjoy the rest of your day, Juliana. So moving on now, shares in Asia Pacific mostly declined today as Chinese tech stocks in Hong Kong came under pressure after regulatory fears resurfaced. We'll take a break now. When we come back, we have more stories for you on Business Incorporated on Channels Television. You're welcome back. You're still watching Business Incorporated on Channels Television. Now, going to the commodities market update. We're looking at cement. The average price of a bag of cement has increased by about 57% to 4,000 from 2,550 around this time last year. However, prices appear to differ across multiple brands. What are the possible reasons for these observed differentiated prices, and what measures are in place to protect consumers from exploitation? Seyi Omidiora, a research analyst with financial derivatives, tells us what he knows about this. Hello, Seyi. Good afternoon. Okay. So I think we'll have Seyi later on the program. For now, let's move on to South Africa economy, where South Africa has been hit with another fuel price increase for the month of July. Petrol grades will see an increase of 26 and 29 cents per litre, and diesel will increase by 42 cents per litre. The latest increases have been driven by international petroleum costs and the movements in the dollar-rand exchange rate. After a slight decrease in fuel prices in the month of June, many believe the trend will continue, only to be disappointed by the news of a fifth fuel increase in the last 7 months. So we have Seyi joining us now to talk about the differentiated price of cement and what he thinks about it. Hello, Seyi. Good to have you.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, good to have you. So when we look at the scenario, different prices, different brands, how can the consumers be protected and not exploited?
Okay. First things first, we are aware of the structure of the cement manufacturing market in Nigeria. It's neither a monopoly and it isn't a perfect competition either. It's more of an oligopoly, with Dangote Cement being the market leader in terms of market share. And companies like BUA and Lafarge also having about 17% and 22% of market share respectively. Now, in terms of this differentiated pricing, there might be a number of factors here. The first one being the fact that a lot of these companies have different geographic spreads. Now, for companies like BUA, they have a lot more market share in places like the Northwest, and Lafarge also has a lot more dominance in the South-South, but Dangote Cement has a lot more dominance when it comes to the Southwest as well as the rest of the Eastern regions. So that also gives them a lot more latitude to tweak their prices in these regions where they are dominant, where they have significant strength, or where they have a significant amount of distribution strength. Now, another reason for this differentiated pricing could be the perception of quality. Now, we know for certain that Dangote Cement is the brand of choice when it comes to construction and building projects. And this generally is because the company is synonymous with cement manufacturing in Nigeria. And of course, this also gives them a lot more latitude to tweak their prices, to set their prices a lot more than the other two competitors in the industry. In terms of how consumers can be protected, we know that, yes, it's not a perfect competition, but it is well competed for. That's the market, the cement manufacturing market in Nigeria. And consequently, we feel that over the long term, the laws of demand and supply will prevail. And this is because the market is efficient in a way. Yes.
So apart from consumers, let's look at investors, and let's go to the equities market. Is there any correlation between the earnings and profitability of these cement manufacturers, their strategy, and their performance in the stock market?
Okay, yes, we are aware that the cement manufacturing industry did way better than the overall stock index in 2020. And this was particularly surprising in a year that Nigeria as a whole wasn't particularly efficient. We didn't see them as being financially or fiscally capable of implementing implementing the capital budget. And of course, traditionally, we have seen that cement manufacturers do a lot better in years where the Nigerian government is a lot more capable in implementing the budget, the capital budget, and even more so for Lafarge. But it wasn't particularly surprising for Lafarge because they sold off their South African business, which was a drag on profitability. And we believe that they are still reaping benefits of that. But overall, we think that things like liquidity and, of course, the availability of investment vehicles to deploy assets in are a much bigger factors in things like stock prices and performance in the stock market than it is things like strategy, although these things are still important because we don't think investors will deploy their assets into businesses that don't have long-term strategic plans to expand and be profitable. But we still think that things like liquidity and availability of investment vehicles are much bigger factors at play here.
So Nigeria has ratified the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, and cement is one of the products where Nigeria, through its cement manufacturing companies, possess a comparative advantage over other African countries. Is Nigeria making use of this advantage?
Okay, yes, we would like to believe we are, because indeed, yes, cement manufacturing is one area where Nigeria possesses comparative advantage over other African countries. And with the ratification of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, we believe that this is a good thing for the cement manufacturing industry in Nigeria. Now, we know that the installed capacity of plants for these cement manufacturers is at least, at a minimum, about 2 times more than our domestic demand currently. And even though the capacity utilization is just about 50% at the moment, they keep expanding because of things like the pioneer status they get. And this also gives them some pioneer status, yes, for their tax filings, and they also get tax credits. But ultimately, we have seen situations where companies like Dangote try to export, or there were obstructions in terms of moving their products through land borders from one country to another country. And this was due to the obstructions that were in place before the ratification of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. But with it now in place, we expect that over the long term, the Nigerian companies can do significantly better than a lot more of their African competitors.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us, Shay, and enjoy the rest of your day. Shay Umidiora is analyst with Financial Derivatives Company. Joined us from Victoria Island in Lagos. Moving on now, Ethiopia plans to restructure an additional $1 billion of debt as the government seeks to free up funds to support its economic recovery. Restructuring of the debt will provide a grace period of as long as 6 years and extend the maturity by 10 years. $2.5 billion principal and interest payment has been postponed for 5 years by commercial creditors under the first external debt restructuring scheme. The announcement comes after Ethiopia requested to rework its debt under the Group of 20 Common Framework, an initiative to secure debt relief for poor nations from all creditors, including China and commercial lenders. The International Monetary Fund has reached a staff-level agreement on a $107 million arrangement under the Extended Fund Facility to support Seychelles' Economic Reform Program. High-level officials from the government gave details on economic reforms that Seychelles will implement that are subject to IMF management approval of the agreement. Seychelles' economic situation is in a bad state, and that reform is needed to ensure the long-term future of the country. Some of the measures to be taken under the economic reform include improving the country's debt sustainability, the business environment, and reform of public administration. The mission chief for IMF in Seychelles says that the positive impact of the reopening of Seychelles will go a long way. And in Egypt, annual urban consumer inflation accelerated to 4.9% in June from 4.8% in May. However, month-on-month inflation slowed to 0.2% from 0.7% in May. For full year 2021, which runs from July 2020 to June 2021, the economy is projected to slow further due to ongoing effect of the pandemic and a weak external environment. Focus economic panelists project GDP to expand 2.6% in full year 2021, which is up 0.4% points from last month's forecast, and 5.1% in full year 2022. That's it on Business Incorporated for today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. I'm Ini John Mekwa.